It started with a phone call I almost didn't answer. I was sitting by the window that evening watching the last light of Austin spill across the yard. The air smelled like rain and cut grass. My wife's favorite scent. She'd been gone 3 days and the house still felt like it was waiting for her to walk in, humming, telling me to put down the paper and eat dinner before it got cold. The phone buzzed again. Ethan, my son. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to hear his voice. The other part remembered the silence he gave me during her final days. When she asked for him, I said he was busy. That was the last lie I ever told her. Dad, he said, his tone strangely upbeat. Listen, we can't make it to the funeral. It's Nicole's birthday weekend. We planned a trip months ago. Cancun, remember? Non-refundable and all that. For a second, I thought I misheard him. The static on the line stretched longer than any silence I'd known. Then he laughed. That uncomfortable kind of laugh you use to soften something cruel. You understand, right? Mom wouldn't have wanted us to cancel. I looked at the photograph on the table, her hand on his shoulder, his smile wide, hers proud. She adored that boy. She'd driven halfway across Texas once just to surprise him on his graduation day. And now when she was gone, he couldn't drive 3 hours to say goodbye. I didn't yell, didn't curse, didn't say a damn thing. I just watched the bourbon in my glass ripple under the tremor in my hand. When you get to my age, grief and anger feel almost identical. One burns, the other freezes, but both hollow you out from the inside. Sure, I said finally, you two enjoy yourselves. That night the rain started. It tapped against the roof like a clock running out of patience. I sat at the kitchen table until dawn, staring at her empty chair. Every creak of the house reminded me of her laughter, her voice, and every silence reminded me of him. There's a kind of betrayal that doesn't need shouting. It's in what's not said, the absence at a grave, the empty seat beside you. I realized then that my son wasn't the boy I raised. Somewhere along the line, he traded empathy for convenience and respect for comfort, and I let it happen. The day of the funeral came and went. Friends spoke kind words. Flowers filled the air with sweetness she would have loved. I nodded through it all, but my mind was elsewhere in a beach photo I saw later that night. Him and Nicole, cocktails in hand, ocean behind them. She wore a wide straw hat. He wore my old smile. The caption read, "Celebrating life with the one who matters most. Red heart." I didn't comment. I didn't call, but something inside me shifted. Subtle, deep, irreversible. Grief turned into clarity. Love turned into distance. And somewhere in that silence, a seed was planted. One that would take months to bloom. But when it did, it would change everything. Because when your own son chooses a stranger's birthday, over his mother's final goodbye, you stop being a father and you start becoming something else. He showed up at my doorstep 4 months after the funeral. No call, no warning. Just parked his white Tesla under the old oak we planted together and walked up the steps like he still belonged here. Well, I said, opening the door. Look who finally remembered the way home. He smiled. That same shallow, polite smile he wore whenever things got uncomfortable. He held a designer bag, not his own. This is from Nicole, he said. She thought you might not be eating properly. Some protein bars, organic tea, that kind of thing. His voice carried the practiced warmth people use when they want to sound caring without actually feeling it. I stepped aside and let him in. He looked around the living room, eyes moving over the furniture, the walls, the photos, like a man appraising square footage rather than memories. House looks good, he said casually. So do the ghosts, I replied. We sat in silence for a while. The air between us felt thick, like dust no one dared to wipe away, afraid of erasing what's left of the past. Then he cleared his throat. Dad, I came because I need a little help, just temporary. Nicole and I found a new house, but my credit took a small hit. Long story, totally under control. If you could sign as a co-bearer, we'd get a much better rate. It's really just a formality. He spoke fast, confident, like a salesman pitching sunshine in a bottle. I watched him, and for a moment I didn't see the grown man sitting in front of me. I saw the little boy who used to hide behind my leg when thunder shook the house. Now he hid behind excuses. A formality I repeated slowly, like a funeral maybe. His smile froze. Dad, come on. Don't start that again. Mom wouldn't have wanted. I raised my hand. Don't you dare tell me what your mother would have wanted. He sighed, then leaned forward the way he used to when he wanted to manipulate a situation. Please, Dad. I'm just asking for help. We're family. Family. I repeated quietly. The word tasted like rust. I turned away so he wouldn't see my face tighten. Not from anger, from disappointment. Because in that moment, I knew he hadn't come for forgiveness. He'd come for a signature. "All right," I said, finally, "leave the papers. I'll take a look." His expression lit up. He stood, shook my hand. "Quick business, like cold. Knew I could count on you, Dad. Nicole's going to be thrilled." When the door closed behind him, the house sank back into silence. I looked at the folder he left on the table, neat, polished, smelling faintly of his cologne. Too expensive for someone asking for favors. I didn't open it. I placed it beside my wife's photo instead. She looked at me from the frame, calm, knowing, almost as if she already understood what I would do next. I took out the old will from the drawer beneath the glass, her handwriting beside mine. The last thing we ever signed together. Back then, we'd laughed about it, saying Ethan would inherit everything when the time came. But time changes people. And sometimes it demands you change the story too. Because when someone comes to you not with love, but with calculation, that's not a request. It's a second betrayal. And second betrayals always give birth to decisions. After he left, the silence in the house felt heavier than it had in months. The sound of his car fading down the road didn't bring relief, only the echo of something I couldn't name. I poured another drink, not because I needed it, but because it gave my hands something to do. The glass clinked against the table, sharp in the stillness. On the table beside me sat two things, the folder he'd left, and the photograph of the woman who'd loved us both. Her smile looked different now. Maybe it was the lighting, or maybe it was the way guilt changes the way you see the dead. I stared at that picture for a long time, until my reflection in the glass merged with hers. Then I said quietly, "You were right about him, weren't you?" The night didn't answer, but I already knew. She'd seen what I refused to see. That comfort breeds carelessness. Ethan had everything handed to him, and somewhere between success and self-importance, he forgot what mattered. I opened the folder. Mortgage forms, signatures, neat calculations. His handwriting in the margins, confident, careless, assuming. He'd already filled in my name, left only the signature line empty, as if my agreement were a certainty. He'd stopped asking for permission years ago, and now he'd stopped expecting respect. That was when the first thought came. Not loud, not vengeful, just quiet, deliberate, like a match struck in a dark room. I didn't want to destroy him. I wanted him to see, to finally understand what it feels like to lose something you thought was yours by right. Because that's what death teaches you. Nothing belongs to you forever. Not love, not time, not even family. I turned her photo face down. It wasn't anger, it was focus. There's a moment in every man's life when grief stops being about tears and starts being about truth. For me, that moment came right then, under the low hum of the refrigerator, and the rain beginning to fall again outside. I made a list, not of debts, not of money, of lessons. I wrote 1, gratitude cannot be inherited. 2, love cannot be demanded. 3, forgiveness must be earned. 3 lines, 3 rules, and under them 1 plan. By morning, I had clarity. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to fight. I would give Ethan exactly what he asked for, a signature. But attached to it would be something far heavier than ink. I called my lawyer, James. He'd been with our family for 25 years, a loyal man with a quiet sense of justice. "James," I said, "I want to make a few changes to the will." There was a pause. "Of course, Mr. Harris. Any particular reason?" "Just time for some things to find their rightful place." He didn't ask more. He knew better. Then I called my accountant, requested a few files, moved some assets, and by the end of the day, the picture had shifted. The company shares, the savings, the lake house, all retitled. Nothing gone, nothing hidden, just redirected. A man doesn't have to take away wealth to teach value. Sometimes he just needs to make it conditional. That night, as I walked through the quiet house, I felt something I hadn't in months. Peace, not happiness, not satisfaction, just the calm of a man who finally knows what he has to do. Before I went to bed, I wrote a letter, not to him, to myself. It said, he thinks I'm signing a mortgage, but I'm signing a lesson. One he'll never forget. Not out of cruelty, out of love. I folded it and placed it under the photo. Then I turned out the light. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But mine wasn't cold at all. It was warm, patient, and made of everything a father has left to give. Truth, I didn't sleep that night. Not out of grief, not anymore, but out of focus. There's a kind of stillness that only comes when you stop wishing things were different and start shaping them as they should be. By dawn, I'd already made 3 calls and poured 2 cups of coffee, one for me, one for Habit. James, my lawyer, arrived just after 7. He'd been my friend long before he became my counsel. Gray hair, slow movements, eyes that missed nothing. I assume this isn't about standard estate maintenance, he said. No, I answered. This is about education. He gave a small smile. Your son. My son, I confirmed. He needs to learn what inheritance really means. We spent the next few hours going through documents quietly, efficiently. Every signature, every clause. I moved portions of my estate into a charitable trust under my late wife's name. The company shares were reassigned to an educational fund for single mothers, something she'd always wanted to do but never had the chance. James looked up at one point. You realize this means Ethan gets nothing directly. Oh, he'll get something, I said. Just not what he expects. The real brilliance of revenge lies not in destruction but in precision. You don't ruin someone. You let them see what they ruined themselves. By noon we had everything ready. One last addition. A small clause handwritten at the bottom of the trust papers stating that the beneficiary could reclaim part of the estate under one condition: a year of unpaid volunteer work at the very foundation his mother's name would carry. If he wanted his inheritance, he'd have to honor her legacy. It wasn't punishment. It was restoration. When James left, the house felt lighter. The rain from the night before had cleared, and the air smelled like wet soil and pine, the kind of scent she loved after storms. I took that as a sign. That afternoon I called Ethan. Son, I said, keeping my tone calm, I looked over your papers. You can drop by tomorrow and I'll sign. Relief burst through his voice. Thank you, Dad. Seriously, this means a lot. I'm sure it does, I said and hung up. He came the next day wearing the same cologne, same confidence. Nicole stayed in the car, tapping on her phone. He walked in grinning. I knew you'd come through. Of course, I said. Fathers usually do. I handed him the signed folder. His eyes didn't even glance at the pages. He trusted the signature more than the man behind it. Thanks, Dad. Really. He reached out to hug me. It was quick, half-hearted, the kind of embrace that leaves your soul untouched. Before he could leave, I stopped him. There's something else, I said. I updated my will. James will send you a copy next week. You should read it carefully. He frowned slightly. Everything okay? Everything's perfect, I said. For once. He left his car pulling away in a flash of white. I stood by the window, the same one I'd sat by when he called from Cancun. The same view, same silence, but I wasn't the same man. The house no longer felt like a tomb. It felt like a waiting room waiting for truth to arrive. Over the next few days, I finalized everything. The trust was filed, notarized, sealed. My accountant confirmed the transfers. The house was appraised, the account settled, and one letter written in my hand, sealed in blue wax, was placed in James's folder. It was to be given to Ethan 1 year from that day, regardless of what happened. Inside that letter were no threats, no accusations, just a message. Son, if you ever want to understand what love looks like, go stand in front of the building with your mother's name on it. Then ask yourself why it took you so long to get there. The plan wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about balance. You don't curse those who betray you. You let them face themselves in a mirror they can't escape. That night, I poured one last drink and sat by the window again. The air was calm, moonlight spilling across the empty chair where she used to sit. I lifted my glass slightly and whispered, "Don't worry, love. He'll learn, just not the way he expected." And for the first time since she died, I didn't feel the need to talk to her anymore, because my actions were already speaking for both of us. It happened 2 weeks later. James called me that morning to say the documents have been received, processed, and filed. My estate, my life's work, now belonged to causes she believed in. The house, the land, the savings, all tied to her name. Every cent would build something she would have been proud of. And Ethan, he still hadn't called. That didn't surprise me. People like him only reach out when they need something. Gratitude doesn't fit in their vocabulary. It has no transaction value. On the 3rd week, I got a message short. "Dad, I got your lawyer's package. Can we talk?" I waited a day before replying, of course. "Come by tomorrow." When he arrived, he wasn't smiling. The confident posture was gone. His shirt was untucked, hair a little unkempt. The kind of mess you only wear when your surty cracks. He didn't sit right away, just stood by the doorway, holding the papers like they might burn him. "What the hell is this?" He said, "Read it." I answered, calm as a priest. "I did. You gave everything away. To some charity in Mom's name." "Yes." He stared at me, disbelief turning to anger. "You can't do this. You said you'd help. You signed the papers." I did help, I said quietly. You got your signature. Don't play games with me, he snapped. This is insane. You can't just cut your own son out like that. I stood and walked over to the window. Same one. Always that same damn window where life had started changing in silence. When your mother was alive, I said you were her world. Every day she talked about you, your smile, your job, your future. You were everything to her. And the one day she needed you, you were gone. Gone to a beach celebrating life while she was losing hers. He flinched, looked away. Dad, that's not fair. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I said, you made your priorities clear. You wanted comfort, not connection. Convenience, not compassion. I accepted that. But I'll be damned if I let you inherit something you never valued. His voice cracked with something between rage and desperation. You're punishing me over one mistake. One mistake, I repeated softly. Is that what you call it? Missing your mother's funeral wasn't a mistake, Ethan. It was a statement. He threw the papers on the table. So that's it. You just give it all away. No, I said. I gave it meaning. He blinked, confused. I gestured toward the clause at the bottom of the trust, the one written in my own hand. You want your share. It's simple. 1 year of volunteer work at the foundation. Your mother's name is on the door. You'll hand out meals, organize events, meet the people she wanted to help. When the year ends, you'll receive everything back. The house, the funds, the company shares. But not before. He looked at me like I'd spoken another language. You're serious. As a heart attack, I said, consider it the only inheritance worth earning. The silence stretched. He wasn't used to conditions, only to rewards. Finally, he said, Nicole's not gonna like this. Then Nicole can get a job, I said. He didn't reply. He just stared at the floor, the anger draining from him slowly, replaced by something far worse. Realization. I thought you changed, he muttered. I did, I said. Your mother's death changed me. It taught me that love without respect is just a habit. And habits die hard just like people. He left without another word. The door closed softly, almost respectfully this time. I stood there for a long while listening to the sound of his car fade into the distance, that same white Tesla shrinking down the road like a ghost of old arrogance. Then I turned to the window again. The sun was setting, bleeding gold across the horizon. The light fell over her photo, the one I'd turned face down weeks ago. I lifted it, wiped the dust from the glass, and placed it upright again. You can rest now? I whispered. He's starting to learn. That night, I didn't pour a drink. Didn't need to. For the first time since she died, the silence didn't feel like a wound. It felt like peace. Because revenge isn't always about taking something away. Sometimes it's about giving someone the exact chance they refuse to take, and making sure this time they don't waste it. A year passes slower when you stop waiting for it. Spring bled into summer, summer into fall. The leaves in the yard turned the color of rust, then gold, then gone. I spent my mornings on the porch reading the paper I barely understood anymore. Drinking coffee that never seemed strong enough. But the house was quiet, peaceful, and that was enough. I didn't hear from Ethan for months. No calls, no messages, nothing. At first, I thought he'd ignored the clause. Maybe pride had won. Maybe Nicole had talked him out of it. Either way, it wasn't my concern anymore. I'd made peace with the idea that my lesson might never reach him, for not all seeds grow where you plant them. Then one Sunday in late September, a letter came. No fancy envelope, no printed label, just his handwriting. Inside a short note. Dad, I've been at the center for 6 months now. Didn't think I'd last a week, but I get it now. Mom was right. Helping people changes you. There's this old lady who reminds me of her. I fix her heater every Thursday. She calls me kiddo. If you're not too busy, maybe you could visit. They're naming a new wing after Mom next month. I read that letter 3 times. The words weren't perfect. The grammar was off, but it was honest. And that made it beautiful. For the first time, I heard my son's voice again. Not the businessman, not the beggar, but the boy I used to know. 2 weeks later, I went. The drive took 2 hours. The foundation stood on the edge of town, sunlight spilling across its front like forgiveness. Her name was carved above the door in clean stone letters. The Margaret Harris Community Center. I stood there for a long moment, hand on the railing, heart caught somewhere between grief and pride. Inside, volunteers moved through the halls. Laughter, clatter, the smell of coffee and paint, life. She would have loved it here. And then I saw him. Ethan was standing by a table handing out donated clothes to a young mother with 2 kids clinging to her side, his sleeves rolled up, hair a mess, sweat on his forehead. He wasn't pretending anymore. He was present. He looked up, saw me, froze. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he nodded. Small, genuine. Dad, he said, son, no anger, no apology, just two men standing in the same truth. We walked together through the halls. He showed me what they'd built. The kitchen, the classrooms, the garden out back. Every wall carried a story. Every story carried her name. When we reached the main lobby, he turned to me. I was wrong, he said simply about everything. Mom deserved better. You did too. I didn't answer right away. My throat was too tight for words. I just put a hand on his shoulder the same way I used to when he was a boy afraid of thunder. She'd be proud, I finally said. Later that day, as I was leaving, I looked back one last time. He was laughing with a group of kids, helping them paint a mural on the wall. A bright sunrise, messy and alive. And I realized something. Revenge had never really been the goal. It was the bridge, the way back to understanding. That night at home, I sat again by the window, the same one that had witnessed everything. Loss, betrayal, forgiveness. The air was cool, the moonlight soft. I poured a drink, lifted it to the empty chair across from me, and smiled. You can rest easy now, I said quietly. He found his way back. The glass caught the light like a small flame. I didn't feel angry anymore. I didn't feel empty either, just human. Because revenge, when done right, doesn't destroy, it rebuilds. It strips away pride until all that's left is truth. And sometimes truth is enough. As I turned off the lamp, I caught my reflection in the window. Older, thinner, but lighter somehow. Behind me, the photo of her glowed faintly in the moonlight. For the first time, I didn't feel haunted by it. I felt accompanied. Revenge had done its job. Justice had been served, and love in its quiet, imperfect way had come home again. If this story spoke to you, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can continue the journey by clicking the box on the left. Thank you for being here.